Moving across the House, we have Mr. Jonathan Neumann. Jonathan Neumann is a published author who's based in Israel. He's often featured on several outlets for his expertise on Israeli politics. Mr. Neumann, you have the ears of the House.
Thank you. Coming here this evening feels a bit like going through a time warp, not just because of the period building or because I'm returning to my university, but also because of the debate that we're having. Specifically, the motion being proposed sort of belongs kind of 20 to 30 years ago. It's kind of excruciating to think how little has actually been learned from the last 3 decades of history, let alone the last century and a half. Arguing that Israel should be pressured to exchange land in the baseless hope for peace is a little like a sailor centuries ago imagining that one more sail westward will finally prove that the earth is flat, or the astronomer stubbornly imagining that one more year spent gazing at the stars will finally prove that the sun revolves around the earth. Why is the proposition still proposing a motion, an idea that has repeatedly been proven to be nonsense? Let's ask ourselves a few questions about the motion specifically, this motion. The first question: does Israel need to be pressured for peace to happen? We only have to look at history. Israel didn't have to be pressured for there to be peace with Egypt, didn't have to be pressured for there to be peace with Jordan, a bit later. Israel didn't have to be pressured for there to be peace with the United Arab Emirates, or with Sudan, or with Bahrain, or with Morocco. Israel has always been willing to make peace when it has a willing partner. And in fact, the motion actually recognizes this. The motion itself presupposes rightly that it is not Israel that is withholding peace. A second question: to what end is this pressure exactly? Let's think practically and look at history. There are really only two options, right? Israel could be pressured to make unilateral withdrawals from territory, but it's tried that. It tried that in Lebanon, it tried that in Gaza, and in both cases those territories were left to genocidal terrorist organizations sworn to Israel's destruction, and from those territories they fired tens of thousands of rockets, fired indiscriminately at Israeli civilians. And there have been 5 wars in the last 20 years from those territories from which Israel has withdrawn. War being the opposite of peace. So unilateral withdrawals don't work. You just have to look at history. So that option is out. What's the other option? The other option is negotiations. Well, not only has Israel always been willing to negotiate, but let's think about it. We're in 2023. With whom exactly is Israel supposed to be negotiating? With Hamas, an anti-Semitic genocidal terrorist organization, sworn, as I said, to Israel's destruction, an organization prescribed even by Great Britain, so even the United Kingdom won't deal with Hamas, but Israel apparently is expected to do so. And if not with Hamas, then with who? The Palestinian Authority, a kleptocratic dictatorship that can barely exercise authority in Ramallah, its own seat of government, let alone in the other cities and territories nominally under its jurisdiction. Go on.
I'm refuting your first speaker by saying that Mahmoud Abbas is not democratic now. I distinctly remember your first speaker said that Mahmoud Abbas wants to put in place a democracy in West Bank. But you say...
No, I've got your point. Well, as the first... Thank you, sorry, just the brevity. As the first speaker said, Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Mazen, is in the 18th year of his 4-year term. So you tell me if that's democracy or not. Now, look... The history of negotiations with the Palestinian Authority, they have always failed. Why have they failed? We'll just ask the third-party mediators of those negotiations, like Bill Clinton, like George W. Bush, who have attested that the negotiations collapsed because of the Palestinian Authority. And this is not really surprising. Neither Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority have ever suggested that Israeli withdrawal from territory will bring about peace. They've never claimed that. They've never given such a reassurance. And actually every indication is the opposite is true, that any territory that they acquire will only be used as a staging post for the continuation of war. It's what happened in Area A in the 90s and 2000s under the Palestinian Authority after the Oslo Accords. It's what happened in Gaza when Israel withdrew under Hamas. So if Israel can't withdraw from land without an agreement, but it also has no partner with whom to make an agreement, then what is Israel supposed to do exactly? Just a second. To what end is Israel meant to be pressured? Now, you know, it's very easy to argue about what Israel should or shouldn't do. And the reason is because we are afraid to face up to what it might mean if the ball, the peacemaking power, is not, in fact, in Israel's court. I'll take that point.
You're speaking as if Palestine, the Palestinian people, have suddenly become empty of those who represent them. The Israeli settler state has killed those repeatedly since their occupation, since the start of 1948. They have killed Palestinian thinkers, that's documented, it's been done by the Mossad. They've killed thinkers from the Arab world. They've killed, for example, Mustafa Musharrafa, an Egyptian physicist who happened to study nuclear.
Okay,
So, like, you're framing it as if you don't have representation by choice. You killed that representation.
Forgive me, I understand your point. Look, but I haven't even answered that one yet. I'm afraid these are just alternative facts. At the end of the day, you yourself, sir, you yourself said the average age of the Palestinians is 18. Does this sound like the kind of population that Israel has gone wantonly to wipe out? Where you have a young and growing population, that's a population that Israel has been wiping out? Sorry, demographically, that doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. The fact is, one second, let me carry on. The fact is that pressuring Israel doesn't bring peace because it simply fails to move the other side. So why is that? Well, it's quite simple. It's because the only thing that stands in the way of peace, it's not Israel, it's not land, it is the refusal to recognize the legitimacy of the Jewish state. That's the sticking point. And until the Palestinian Arab leadership and the people are prepared to accept a Jewish state and not use every opportunity to try to undermine or destroy that state, there will not be peace. It really is that simple. You know, history has shown time and again that Israel is willing to make almost any concession for the sake of peace, except suicide. But history has also shown suicide is the one concession that the other side has always demanded. And that is because it cannot accept a Jewish state in any borders. So this isn't a conflict about land. So giving away land cannot in itself solve it. But I want to ask one final question. Who exactly is to do this pressuring? Professor Schleim suggested it should be the West. Okay. Britain, which historically has perhaps done more than any other country to screw up the Middle East? What makes you think that Britain knows now suddenly so much more than it did in the past? America, whose exploits in the Middle East have been there for all to see for the last several decades. Europe, Russia, historically the world's greatest pacifists. Honestly, where do any of these countries get off telling Israel what to do? Ask yourselves honestly whether you would accept this sort of West-splaining and neo-imperialism anywhere else in the world. Because if you won't, then why are you prepared to accept it when it comes to Israel? And if you are prepared to accept that someone should be pressured, then why Israel? I've already explained, I hope, why pressuring Israel cannot help, because pressuring Israel will not change the mind of the other side in this conflict. So where is the debate about pressuring the Arabs? Pressured, for example, to accept the Jewish state and to stop inciting their children against the Jewish state and against the Jews, pressured to stop propagandizing that there's going to be a mass influx of Arabs into the Jewish state to destroy it demographically, pressured to end its pay-to-slay package of financial incentives that reward the murder of Jews, pressured to stop pursuing a war of terror and boycotts against the Jewish state, to name only a few options of pressure. If we really want to have peace, then that's the debate that we should be having. But this motion is perverse. It runs totally counter to the history of this conflict. So to stand with the opposition this evening, you don't have to be pro-Israel, you only have to be pro-history. Thank you.